I'm going to introduce this next session. Mr. Mike Riley, who is sitting beside me, began working in the film industry in 1982 as a project manager for the Georgia Film Office. In 1991, he began his freelance career as a Georgia-based location manager and has worked for every major studio and television network. He has over 35 feature and television film credits that include Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?, Sweet Home Alabama, Warm Springs, and the hugely popular AMC series The Walking Dead, which begins its third season in Georgia in May 2012. In addition to working in Georgia, he has worked in projects in North and South Carolina, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. So Mr. Mike Riley and again Mr. Dominey.
Are both of these working or just this one? Just that one. All right. Well, we'll put it right here.
I guess
Hello,
so.
hello. There we go. That's good. Again, I'm Mike Riley. I'm the location manager currently on The Walking Dead, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to y'all. The Camera Ready project is really something that is helpful to people like me, location managing, and producers, production designers, and the industry as a whole. So that's me, and y'all know Craig.
We're going to do this. Y'all are going to hear my voice in your dreams tonight, I think. So I'm hoping to let Mike do most of the talking, but I just wanted to say again that it's great to have you guys here, and you know the benefit of these panels is to kind of hear it straight from the horse's mouth, I guess you could say. Before the panel we had in here, we heard from the Camera Ready liaisons and some of the things they deal with, but you know Mike's got obviously a lot of experience in this business, and not only with us but with the local communities and everything from scouting locations to working out the logistics of shooting at particular places. And so you heard one side of it this morning. Now I want to go to the more of the production side and have you learn things from his perspective. But I just wanted, in case people don't know the terminology and what people do, Mike, could you explain what a location manager does?
Yeah. A location manager initially is sort of self-explanatory, but initially what the manager does is when they're employed, they get hired to do a job for a company. They'll get a script, they'll read through the script, they'll break it down into locations, and then we try to find the locations that are pertinent to the film or the project. We do a physical search, we go out and take photographs, we contact people such as yourselves in the various areas where we think these locations might be based on our experience, or we start asking questions about where can we find this. Once the locations are selected and are approved by the director and the production designer and the producers and all, it's sort of a collaborative effort, both logistical and artistic. Sometimes logistics override art, and sometimes art overrides the logistics. It depends on where the power lies within that particular production. But once we determine where the locations are, then we have to start figuring out the logistics of, okay, where are we going to house the crew? You know, who's going to help us with all the permits? Where are we going to park the equipment? Who's going to provide security for us? Who's going to provide police protection? Who's going to control the traffic? Where do I get my DOT permit, my permission to close the streets? Where are we going to feed the crew? Where are the crew's going to use the restroom? Where are we going to put the extras? Where are they going to park? Where are they going to live when we're not shooting? What are they going to do at night when we're done? I try to get out of that part. I'll let somebody else handle that. But it's all part of the process of once we land in a place, regardless of where it is, and how long we're going to be there. The needs are the same. And we are basically a rolling carnival. And if you've seen a film production in your community, you know what we're talking about. Generally, our crews are anywhere, on a feature film, crews are anywhere from 130 to 175 people. That's not including your cast, that's not including extras, that's just your basic run-of-the-mill crew. That's your drivers, that's your electricians, that's your grips, that's your directors and their assistants, and the office personnel, the transportation department, in all, special effects, wardrobe, all of it, you come up to anywhere, like I said, from 125, 150, 175 people, depending on the scope of the project. They all need some place to stay. If they're outside an area that is not, well, regardless where they are, whether they're in Atlanta or in a more rural setting, they all need places to stay if they're from out of state, and housing is required. So that's one of the main priorities that you have to have when you're working with crews out of state. But our job is, as location people, is to manage the set, to make the set every day available to the crew so that they can shoot the footage that they need without having to think about this other stuff. We have to basically direct them to here's where you're going to park for the day, here's where we're going to have lunch, this is how you get here, this is how you get home. So all of that happens within my department. So I'm going to backtrack here just a minute because I think it's important. I think it's important that you know or understand this, and I think you do. It's called the film business, and it is a business. When you get away from the glitz and the glamour and the stars and the cameras and the lights, it's really a business, just like any other business. It's just not a brick and mortar business. We're very temporary, we're very transient. We'll come into a community, we'll stay there from anywhere from 2 months to maybe a year, and then we're gone. So we're like a big convention for a while, or a bunch of tourists. So it's money that come in, it's people that come in, they stay there for a while, they drop some money in the community, and then they're gone. And hopefully everything's cleaned up and nice and neat once we're gone. That's also part of my job. There's sort of there's a tier system. If you'll think of, there's two ways I look at the film business from my perspective. You can either look at it as an aquarium, or you can look at it as an inverted pyramid. Maybe an aquarium's a little easier to understand. The big fish are at the top, and the little fish are down at the bottom. I'm somewhere in between. So when the money is distributed, when you hear something like, this is a $40 million project, it may be, but maybe 2/3 of that goes to what's known as above the line. 2/3 of that may go to the actors, it may go to the producers, it goes to the writers, it goes to the directors, before it even gets down to the level of where the actual production takes place. So $40 million may turn into 15, and that's how much we've got to spend on actually producing, shooting the film. So it's budget driven. Every department has to provide a budget to their producer, estimating based on their experience and the needs of the company of what it's going to cost them departmentally to do the job. So to get to my level, to get to what I need, this is what I need first and foremost. I need the locations, which the camera ready people help me with, which the state helps me with, which the people that I have scouting for me and myself out scouting. We find the locations. Okay, we've done that now. We found the place to do it. Now we got to start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. The first thing we need is office space. We got to put our production offices somewhere. Our production offices are the center of how we function. It's just like any other business. It's your administrative support. It's where we all go to work. We have our phones, we have our internet. We have to have access to all the latest technology that we can get our hands on. And it doesn't have to be fancy, it just has to be there, okay? Now, it's easier in areas that are more developed to find this kind of thing. But when you go outside of that a little ways, when you go into smaller communities, you have to start thinking maybe a little differently about where you're going to put stuff. We used on a film, this motion picture called Black Dog that they shot here years ago, which is a cult classic of sorts, if you're a fan of Meatloaf. The singer, and Patrick Swayze. And we wound up putting our production offices in a used car dealership. And it worked out because we could use the office space that was the administrative office space in the dealership. We used that for the production office center, we took the showroom and we split it up into, split it up into cubicles and put the art department on one side and my department, pardon me just a minute, and some of the other departments. So we made that work for us. We had plenty of parking. That wasn't a problem. We had a big old parking lot out there. We could park all these trucks. We were wrecking trucks every day once we started shooting. That was part of the show. We were crashing trucks, running them off the road, running them into each other. So they brought them back to the car dealership. They had the bays there that they used to work on the cars. They could work on the trucks there. So it doesn't have to be a traditional office space. It can be something that's not, you know, oh, well, we don't really have an office park where we are, but hey, we do have this, and this might work. It could be a closed school. It could be a closed prison, if you can find one. It could be a closed warehouse facility, an old mill. As long as it's got power, it's got, you know, it's not too far gone that we don't have to go in and totally rehab the place. Just needs a little cleaning up, go in, plug everything up, get some internet service in there, get the phone service in. Who can help us with that locally? And that's where the camera-ready people come in again. Where do we go to get a phone line in 3 days? Where do we go to get internet service in as soon as we can get it there? Where do we go to get water, bottled water? Where do we go to get office supplies? Where do we go to get construction materials? Who in the community can give us access the quickest and give us the permit requests the quickest? Who do we go to in these communities that can expedite what we do and make sure it happens? And it's your job, I think, is not just to take photographs of your area and all that kind of thing, but to find out, as you should probably know anyway, who the county commissioner is that you can get on the phone to and talk to their assistant and say, can we shoot on this road? Can we close it down for a day or two? Yeah, you got to come down and come to the commissioners meeting and we'll talk about it and give them a plan and we'll work it out. But who is it that pulls the trigger on this kind of thing? Is it a city manager, county commissioner, a mayor, a councilman, that sort of thing? So those are areas that are very important to us too, from my perspective, is how am I going to move the company around to these various locations? How are we going to get permission to close this road, to shoot at this school, to go in this office park? Who's going to help me do that? Shoot on the square? Is there a downtown business association I need to talk to? That's the kind of thing we need from the location perspective. Studio space. This room could be a studio that we're sitting in right now. You could black out the windows, put in a grid, cover the floor, build a set. You could use this as a sound stage. This kind of space. It doesn't have to be a sound stage. It can be a closed warehouse. It can be an empty building such as this, if you can find it, or not even empty. Could we own this for 4 months if I needed it? And we're going to build an entire house inside this place. Can I get permission to do it? Is there some place I can do this? That's the kind of things that we need when we go into communities. Housing, like I mentioned before. Now the housing's a little trickier. The above the line, again, they're the ones that are going to get the best places, so especially the cast. They're going to require certain things. They're going to want some privacy. They're going to want something that's big enough that they can feel comfortable living in. They may want to bring their families. They may want to bring their personal trainer. They may want to bring their masseuse. Who knows? I mean, you know, the actors are a different breed altogether. But they are going to want a really nice place without paying a lot of money for it. So, because it's all about, again, it's business. They want to, you know, they're going to want to try to keep the costs down if they can. It's not money out of their pocket. They get paid, but if they don't have to spend all of it, they get to keep some of it. So that's part of it too. That's part of the deal. Producers, directors, that level, they're the ones that are going to be wanting the nicer places. It can be somebody's summer home that they're not using, or maybe they want to go out of town for 6 months, and this particular star will take their house over. All this kind of this has happened, you know, all over the place when we work. So So housing is important. So you need to start in your head, start putting together a list of places that you think, hey, that could work if I needed to use this for something. Then with the crew, it's a little more pedestrian, but comfortable. You know, try to find a nice hotel that we can get into, get a good rate. They're going to be living there the whole time. Does it have room service? If it doesn't have room service, would they be willing to create a room service for them? Because these folks are working 12, 14-hour days. They come back to the hotel at night. They're going to take a shower. They're going to want something to eat. But guess what? The restaurant closed at 6 o'clock, and it's now 10:30. So that sort of thing is very important as well. If that's not available, are there restaurants in town that would be willing to stay open late? You know, they normally close at 9, but we'll stay open till 10 tonight and let the crew come in. Some of the crew, if we know they're coming, we just don't want to stay open and they don't show up. So those sort of things have to be worked out as well. So now what do they do when they're not working? Sleeping most of the time and doing laundry. But if they're staying over the weekend, then they're going to want to do something. They're going to want to go, okay, what do you do for fun around here? Do you go whitewater rafting? Do you go canoeing on the river? Do you go to a clam bake? What is it that you do in your community that's fun to do? Gives them a little downtime. Maybe you can create something for them if it's nothing to do. If there's nothing scheduled for that particular time. Again, that's sort of something you need to think about in regard to support for the crew itself. Hotels basically are, as long as they're comfortable and clean, have laundry service or a place they can do their laundry. Maybe you can do corporate housing where they can find some apartments that they can rent, in a block, and put the entire crew in that. I've worked, when I worked in Mississippi, I stayed in a corporate apartment with the rest of the crew. All of us had our own apartments, had laundry, washer, dryer, maid service, all that kind of stuff. So what is available around you? Let's say, again, if you're in a more rural area, let's say we're there sometime in the spring through late summer, and you happen to be down in Americus or Albany or somewhere like that, where maybe once you get through your hotels, there's not a lot left. What else can you do? Think about some of these corporate quail plantations or something like that may not be open during that particular time of the year. They've got enough rooms. They're usually pretty nice places. They usually have a restaurant staff there. They have a bar. That's always helpful. And, a good place to stay. So think of places like that, resorts that may not be in full swing when the crew happens to be there. Anything like that you can use in lieu of regular hotel type accommodations. All right, support services. From my perspective, again, as I was mentioning, support services for me are where do they eat, where do they use the restroom, and where can I park them? On The Walking Dead, I have a vendor list of about 60 different vendors that I use on this show. Now, I don't use them all the time, but I have people all the way that provide me toilets to pest control. We had a skunk in the barn. How do we get him out? I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to send anybody else in there to do it, so let's find somebody that takes animals out and let them go get them. So we did that. We got rid of yellow jacket nests. We got rid of a skunk. We got rid of a beaver. We got, snakes. Had a snake wrangler. A fella had to come out and remove a couple of snakes for us out of a humanely, of course, to get them out of the way. So, again, garbage company. Where's all our trash go? Where am I going to? We create a ton of trash every day from the caterer alone. He's feeding 170 people, 150 people 2 meals a day. Craft service comes in if we're working late, brings in sandwiches and pizzas. They eat about half of them. The rest of it we either have to throw out or try to give it to somebody. So we generate a ton of garbage every day that has to be disposed of every day. So it's those type of things that we have to have. Tent companies. Got to put the crew somewhere. Say I'm out on a farm somewhere or out in a rural area, and we need a place to eat, and there's nothing close. I can't find a church anywhere, and churches come in very handy because most of them have dining halls, and if they're not too particular, they'll let us come in and use them. But sometimes I need to put up a tent. So is there a tent company anywhere near you that can provide me with tables and chairs and tents, things of that nature that I can set up temporarily? Feed the crew, let them come take the tent, move it to the next place if we have to do it again. So it's those type of logistics that we need when we're working. The other thing is when we first come into a community, I'm going to backtrack just a bit, I may call y'all, someone like you, call the camera-ready person, maybe it's you, maybe it's someone else, and I say, okay, I'm bringing a producer, director, and a production designer down tomorrow. Maybe we've talked a little bit in advance of this. Maybe we haven't. I'm looking for this particular location. I know it's in your area. I've seen photographs of it. Can you get the keys to that building, and can you get me in there tomorrow morning? And this is at 9 o'clock at night. And you're going, man. So you say, yeah, I can make that work. Whether you can or not, the answer is yes. And then you get on the phone and you start making phone calls. And then, maybe by the time we get down there at 9 o'clock in the morning, you got the keys to the place and we can get in and take a look at it. We move very quickly. It's sometimes ridiculously quick based on, reality as we know it outside the film business. But these people, as y'all probably have already heard from Craig and others, they're very demanding. They want something now. They don't want to wait. To them, time is money. They got their director's scheduled to be on a plane at 6 o'clock that night, and he wants to see 5 locations that are 4 hours from the airport and get him back to the airport in time to take a look at it and get on his plane and fly back to wherever he's got to go. So we have to move very quickly with these people. That's the main thing I find with people that are not familiar with the industry, that is sort of a problem. Quick to you may not be as quick as it needs to be for me. And when I call someone and say, I really need to be in this place as soon as I can, and I'm not in, well, let me see if I can find this guy. Or he may be out of town. And I understand that. There's a reality to what it is we have to do. But it's important that you kind of have your pulse on your community and know who to call that can get you in point A or point B as fast. Even if a police officer gets out there, get permission to cut the lock. Let me in there and take a look at it. We'll put the lock back when we go. I'll send you $15, we'll put a new padlock on it or something, I mean, as long as the people know we're supposed to be in there. I don't want to go in there illegally, but I'm just saying, well, we don't have the key, it's in Daytona. And I'm going, well, can we cut the lock? Let us in there. So I don't want to overstress that, but it is very important that we move quickly when we come into a community.
Can I say something about that?
Sure.
Just real quick. I just wanted to, for those of you who weren't in the session earlier, we really harped on this concept of that whenever you suggest it, before there's even a show, whenever you suggest locations to us, or take photographs or put them in Real Scout, all of these places have to be cleared to some degree for the people have to be into filming and want to hear the production company out, and you are able to get in touch with them. And I mean, Mike's kind of giving you a real world example of what I was talking about. So again, the examples of just putting photos from your community online of a house you shot out the window of your car that we don't know anything about, we don't really have a use for that. Everybody that you are dealing with, that you're putting their locations in the database, just make sure that they're, in theory, into filming taking place there, and that you can get in touch with them quickly. I just want to throw that in there.
That's a really good point, and it's nothing worse, from my perspective, to show a director something that they really like and then find out later that the people that own the property aren't interested. It doesn't make me look good. It's kind of hard, or anybody else for that matter. So you really kind of want to know in advance. Now, I've been doing this a long time, so I kind of get a sense. I mean, sometimes I fly by the seat of my pants, and I got a sense about what's going to work and what won't. But you do have to at least have some idea that you can access this place. Again, trying to get back to the person that pulls the trigger on a closed jail somewhere. I looked at a jail down in Milledgeville. And also, I think I looked at another one, let's see, where was that other one I saw? I think it was in Milledgeville as well, but it was more like a county facility. And we were able to get in it, but it had some environmental issues with it, you know, which most of these places do. They're got lead paint, maybe some mold in there. It's wet. The ceilings have been leaking. It's okay to know that, but you know, you have to go in there, and then we got to figure out, okay, now, is this worth us getting into, or are they even willing to let us in there because of the liability issues of putting people in an environment like that? On the Odd Life of Timothy Green that we were shooting this time last year, we shot in an old mill over in Monroe, and I had to get lead paint abatement, mold removal, and lead removal taken out of that building. Chemicals, that we found some drums down there that had they didn't even know what was in it. And so we had to have some guys come out in a hazmat suit and load it up and take it out of there. Make sure there wasn't any structural issues with the property because we're bringing a lot of people in. So those kind of things you kind of work out as you go, but it's good to know about them before you show up. But again, just finding, you know, making sure that who controls that property is going to let us in there in the first place. Or they can say, look, we'll let you look at it, but this, and this may be a problem. As long as I've got some idea of where we're going, then I can communicate that to the people I'm working for and say, yeah, we're going to look at this, but it may have some issues. So, but that's their decision to make, not mine. You know, they're the ones that'll say, this is a good location, we'll make it work. We'll spend the money to have somebody come in and clean up the paint and get all the trash out and make it a little more habitable. So sometimes that's a benefit to the community as well, depending on the locations.
And, you know, those of you who, I think it's pretty much everybody who has photo access to Real Scout, you do have the ability to edit location information in your own county. So if you find out that some location is now off the board for whatever reason, like Mike was just mentioning the prisons in Milledgeville, I got a call from Department of Corrections, I don't know if this is news to you, but a week or so ago, that said, you know, those prisons you guys came out and shot, take them out of your database because we just did an environmental test and it's unsafe to shoot in there and we don't want to deal with it. So we did, and so we made the locations inactive. So when we're sending these photos out, it's like Mike said, you know, we don't want to send locations that they can't use, and then the director falls in love with it, and then you get them out here and you find out you can't use them. But you actually have the ability, and we encourage you to once you put the locations in, to really manage them. And if you find out, like, a house is sold to somebody else, a house burned down, a building burned down, you know, take it out of the system, put a note there so we know that this is no longer an option for a film company. Before a group like y'all existed, when I went into a community, I'm sort of a self-starter. I usually try to find the right person to talk to from the beginning. I usually start if it's a city, I start at the city level. If I'm going to be in the county, I start at the county level. Calling the commissioner's office, maybe mayor's office, police department. Now, police are very important to us as well. It's something I haven't really touched on yet, but. And also, you know, those are the people that are key to us when we come into a community. And y'all should probably know who they are if you don't already. And that's the advantage of having in a way, you're sort of the point person for us now when I come into a community. You don't have to coordinate it, but you can say, here's a list. If you're going to do this, you need to talk to this person. And if you need to do this, you need to do it. And you're going to need to go to this commissioner's meeting, or you got to go to the city council meeting. You got to get on the agenda. We have to know who these people are that can make things happen within your community. And you're a great source for that, so we don't have to get on the phone and spend, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours on the phone, or shooting emails to people, and we just call you and you say, well, yeah, call Mayor Johnson or whoever it is, you know, just get on the phone. This is who you need to talk to, or the city manager, or county manager, whoever it may be. Okay? I don't know if this is the best time to bring this up, but you know, one of the questions, one of the things we discussed in the panel before this was about permitting and procedures, and a lot of these communities are trying to decide how they want to create a film permit or film guidelines, or if they want to if it's necessary. You know, I said every community's different with that, but people are wondering that, so I thought maybe, you know, I've kind of given my answer.
Okay.
But from a location manager's perspective, as they're thinking about doing this, what your thoughts are?
Okay. Keep it simple. That's it. Make it as simple a process as possible. Try to, don't make it something that takes me 3 weeks to get an answer for. Something that I can get an answer within a few days, 2 or 3 days of, okay, can we close this road? Yeah, you can close it, but you'll have to do it on a weekend. Or if you do it, you got to reroute traffic all the way here, here, and here, that kind of thing, which is fine. I don't mind doing that as long as I know what the parameters are. But moving quickly is always important to us. Don't make it a process that takes 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks to get an answer when I might need an answer as soon as the day after tomorrow. So, and I try to let people know in advance as much as I can where we need to be. But sometimes things happen, our schedules change. It rains and we weren't counting on that. An actor gets sick, they're not going to be available. We're not going there today. We're going to have to go over here on the other side of town, and I got to do that overnight. Is there something I can do to make that happen? So that's important. But what I wanted, I kind of go back a little bit. Really, if you're doing some sort of film permitting process, just try to keep it simple. This is the application. You're this company, you need to shoot at this location for so many days, or you're going to be here between the hours of such and such, such. How many people are you going to have with you? Where are you planning on parking them? We have to give you something. We have to give you some kind of plan about what we're thinking. But at the same time, let's be able to move through that process as quickly as possible, so it's not, and can I spin around on it if something comes up that I have to change my schedule? Or we have to change the shooting schedule. So, got to have some flexibility in there. But I wanted to get back to the police just for a second because they're hugely important to us. Whether it's the county sheriff or the city department, or in some cases state people, but I would be going somewhere else to get them. But the police are important to us for a couple of reasons. They, when we get out on the highways, they're the people who are going to be directing traffic for us. They're going to be working for us on an off-duty basis. They're still employed by the county, but we're hiring them individually. And we're paying them a certain amount per hour to be out on that location with us. And they need to know, first of all, I need to know sort of what their hourly charges are going to be. And that I can get through the chief of police or his assistant chief, or I can get it through the county sheriff's office, or maybe through the commissioner's office if they have a set rate for their off-duty police officers. And again, they're very important to us. They work security, they work traffic, and they also kind of keep the general public at bay if we ask them to. So, but they also want to be in the loop. We can't just show up without them knowing it, and it's very important that we try to keep that line of communication open so that they don't feel like, well, who are these? We didn't know nothing about this. And if there are certain ordinances within your community, such as a sign ordinance or parking equipment on this county road or on this city street, if there's certain limitations that exist, the sooner I know that, the better, because that way I'm not asking for something that is going to require somebody to give me a wink and a nod and let us do it and not feel comfortable about it. So it's good to know what community restriction. Is there a sound ordinance? Can we shoot at night past 12 o'clock? Or can we get a variance if I have to shoot all night long? Can I get permission to shoot? And what's the process about getting that permission? Do I have to go to everybody within that area and get them to sign a letter or notify them that, we're asking permission to do this, and are you okay with that? Will you let us do it? So those kind of things. We need to know what community restrictions exist, what special events you might be having in your community during the time frame that we're going to be there. And a good example is what we're about to do in Sonoy for the show that's coming up this season. They have a 4th of July parade every year. They have a car show there every year. They have a Memorial Day parade every year. They have...
I like parades.
They like parades. And they have big events. So I need to know that in advance so that when we're saying, okay, we're going to be shooting down here, we're going to need to set up the week before. Oh, but that's right where we're going to be doing the 4th of July parade. And I'm going, oh, yeah, right. So, but I don't know that until June 27th. That's kind of a problem. So any of your special events in the community, it's good to know about in advance as well.
This is another one of these things that I just want Mike to tell you his answer, because I know what the answer is, but I want him to say it. You know, one of the number one questions I get in the office is either from you or especially from homeowners, because typically what happens is, you know, Mike's at the top of the food chain in his department, but they have location scouts who are actually out under him looking for all these different places, and especially in Atlanta, when they're looking for houses, let's say, they leave letters on people's doors saying, you know, hey, we're interested in your house. They leave my phone number so I can vouch for them, and hopefully I know who they are. But then the homeowners call me and they say, hey, so-and-so's been out to my house. Are they legit? Yes. And they say, okay, well, how much should I charge for them to shoot here? Now, I have my answer, but I just wanted Mike to kind of give his answer for that, because it's a question you'll get all the time.
As little as possible. No, I'm just teasing. No, it varies. It varies on exactly what we're going to be asking of the homeowner. Are we going to just shoot out in your front yard for 4 hours, or are we going to shoot in your house for a month and a half, and I have to move you out and put you in a hotel and board the dog, and the kids are going to have to, you know, stay with you in the hotel or over at grandma's house or something like that. So it all depends on the impact, and there's really not a set fee, and that's the best answer to give people. It's all negotiable. I try to be fair with people, but at the same time, I've got a finite amount of money that I have to spend, and I can't spend more than I have without somebody saying something to me about it. So I have to get permission to do that. I'm just going to say a rule of thumb for a spread of just doing an exterior shoot for a couple hours on somebody's property. I try not to spend more than $500 to $1,000 for that. All right? But if I'm going in somebody's house and I'm going to move them out and we're going to paint the walls and move all their furniture and store it, then the price starts to go up. And I'm not going to tell you how much that can be, but I mean, again, it's all negotiable. But if you know where I'm starting from with just being outside the place, then you can kind of bump it up from there. And everybody's different. One person's floor is somebody else's ceiling. And, you know, it all depends on what they might need financially at the time, or what they might want, or what they might think they can. Now, a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to make $1 million here. And I'm going to say, no, actually you're not. And if it's going to really be an issue early, then I'll have to find someplace else to do this. So it is all negotiable. And again, there's a lot that goes into it. Insurance has to be in place. A temporary, what we call a location agreement, which is essentially a lease, temporary lease on the property to allow us to use it. Now this is just some information you might want to keep in your head. It's sort of not necessarily inside, but an individual in the state of Georgia, or anywhere in the country really, can lease their property for 14 days a year and not have to pay any income taxes on the revenue. It's tax-free. So if I go into somebody's house and say, I'm going to need to shoot here for a week and I'll pay you $2,000 a day, that's $14,000 that you're going to get. You don't have to pay taxes on it. Now, if we go over 14 days, that's a different issue. Then you got to start paying taxes on it. But that is a fact. And this one guy that we used last year on Timothy Green, who's a lawyer, once he found that out, he was very happy. He was going like, yeah, this is great. You know, I don't have to pay taxes on this? No, you don't have to pay taxes on it. And he made sure that we were out of there in 13 days. So, you know, he said, you got to be gone. This is the last day you can be here. I said, okay. So it worked out. And he and his wife went away, and we didn't see them until a week later. And I advise that, by the way. If we're going to go into somebody's house, I suggest you not be there, because it's a pretty invasive process, and it's not for everybody. My word to people is, either do this once, or you'll either do it again, or you'll never do it again. because it's just the kind of process that takes place when you go into somebody's home and you see all these people show up, and it doesn't matter what I tell them. It doesn't matter how honest I am with them. I'm sitting at the dinner table with them. We're about to sign the contract. I said, now 130 people are going to be here in about a week, and we're going to have trucks parked all around the neighborhood, and we're going to have lights here, and there's going to be restrooms in your backyard, and there's going to be a tent over here in your neighbor's yard. And they say, oh man, that's great. And we show up, and they, oh my God, their jaws drop, they turn ashen white, and they wonder, what have I gotten into? So my suggestion is, don't be there. And when you come back, it'll be just like it was when you left, hopefully. You know, and if something's broke, we'll fix it. Contractually, it should say that in any contract that they get, that we'll put the property back in the condition it was received, barring normal wear and tear, which is open to discussion. So a lot of times they'll just scratch that out and say you'll put it back like it was. So, but anyway, we try to take, it's my job to take care, my department's job is to take care of the property and to make sure if damages are done, we fix them. So that's something you kind of tell people. If somebody says, well, they want to shoot my house, what's going to be involved in that? Well, we'll let this guy tell you, but it's a big deal. This is not just two guys and a camera. This is a crew of people coming in, and they're gonna want to be there. So, but anyway, that's a little bit of an aside. But I do try to give people as much information on the front side as I can. It never works. And this gentleman was a perfect example. That he and his wife said, y'all do not want to be here when we shoot this, because they were really worried about the floors, and they were really worried about this and that. And I said, no, you really don't want to be here. Now, we're going to put stuff down on the floors. But the first day the set decorators showed up and we started taking their furniture out of the house, that's the last time I saw his wife. She said, I'm going over here, and call me when it's over. So that was the end of that. But, and he was the same way. I mean, they came back, they started going through the house. They were looking for any little scratch they could find. They finally found a couple, and on the floors, which we had to get fixed. But and there were a few things. Some plants got trampled and, you know, stuff like that. But it can all be fixed. Nothing can be broken that we can't fix unless it's something very precious to the family, and then we ask them to take it with them and get it off the property. So, but anyway, that's sort of a aside. But it's knowledge you need to know, because people are going to ask you that. Okay? Any questions? So the question was if I go into a community, do I tell them what the film is going to be about? I try to tell them as much as I'm allowed to tell them. But sometimes I cheat and I tell them more. But I try to this is it's kind of a dicey issue, because it's real important that people understand that there may be naked people running in your front yard. Okay, like last night, but I don't tell them that right away. You know, I kind of ease my way into. I kind of ease into it. There's a method here. You know, you got to get them to like you before you start getting into it. So but I do tell them as much as I'm allowed to tell them. Now, every show's different. Every producer's different. Some of them don't want you to tell them anything, which I think's a bad idea. And I'll cheat on that sometimes. I'll tell them a little bit. But I think it's important that people know what you're going to do on their property. Have I had a community say no? Yes. I've had churches say no, which is understandable. There was this show that I worked on not too long ago, that this piece of property, this house we wanted to use, there were some scenes in it that the family weren't comfortable with, and I told them about it, and they said yes, then they said no, and then they said yes. So, you know, it was kind of like you go back and forth, you work it out with them. But it's important that you understand that, and I'm the same way. I don't judge the scripts. It's not my job to do that. Now, there's shows I've turned down. Once I saw the script, I said, I don't think I really want to do this, because I know it's really going to be difficult to sell, and it's going to be hard to pitch. So maybe I turn it down. But if I accept a job, it's my job to make sure that these people get what they want. So I understand people saying no to certain things, and that's fine. There's no problem with that. I just don't like to know that too late in the process. That's why I try to let people know early that, okay, this is what we're up to, and this is how it's going to work, and let them be that. But it's not your job to judge either, in my opinion. It's art, okay, so to speak, and it's open to interpretation, okay. I mean, a good example in The Walking Dead this past season, I think it was a part of this season, where we killed the zombies in the church. I don't know if y'all have seen the episode, but we had to go into a church and kill zombies. Well, I knew that was going to be a hard sell. I kept saying, maybe we should build this church. Don't you think that'd be a good idea, just to build the interior set? And we kept looking and kept looking. Certain churches I knew right off the bat, nope, not going in there. They're not going to let you do it. So I was riding down this road, and there was this sign out in front of this Methodist church that said, "Bikers welcome." And I said, these people might do it. So I found a minister who was a female minister for the Methodist church, who was a biker minister, and they had a whole group of Methodist folks that go around on motorcycles and stuff. And it was a 100-year-old church. This church was gorgeous. It was a historic church. So I sat down with all the movers and shakers of the church, and we sat down and we talked about it. And I told them exactly what we were going to do. I said, we're going to kill zombies in your church. And I said, it's going to get bloody, it's going to be ugly. And they said, well, how much are you going to pay us? So we got around to that part of it, and it worked out. It didn't turn into a money thing, but they wanted to make sure that it was going to be worth their while, because they were going to have to sell this to the little ladies in the back pews and stuff. They're saying that, but this is what we're going to do, and it's an old church, but they're going to take care of it. So that's how that worked. But again, you have to tell people what you're going to do there. Okay, that's a long answer to a short question, and I apologize for that. Yes.
My experience is that y'all like to refilm in the same locations a lot. Is there a way if you can give us a break into?
You're saying that we like to film in locations we've shot before. Is there a way to break into something that's not been shot? Well, yes, there is. Now, where are you located? Where?
Chatsworth, Murray County, on the west side of the mountains.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's something that you would have something there that we would want to go see. The best thing is just to put together get your photographs together and make sure you've got all that going so that we can see what you have, and Craig and them can see what you have, and if the locations come up, then we'll go out there and look at them. But if it's within our ability to do that, the problem that we always have with this industry is that the bulk of the people, they want to stay where it's the most comfortable for them. And that is the trick, is to get them outside of the urban areas and to get them someplace that's a little less urban or not quite as metropolitanized or something like that. That's always a hard thing to do. But it's happening more and more because the incentive makes it affordable for them to be able to do that now. They say, well, we're going to, we go spend some money on some housing and per diem, then we can write that off. We're going to get that credited back to us. So that's helping a lot, and that's why you're seeing the business move outside the metro Atlanta area, outside Savannah. I mean, it's just like Craig showed in that other presentation today. The last couple of years, we've been all over the state. We haven't hit everybody, but we have been all over the state, and that you're going to see a little more of that too, I think, as things progress.
We have a question in the far back.
Yes,
there.
ma'am.
Yeah.
As a small community who might not have everything that you're looking for, how far would you travel for something, for instance,
Okay, so the question was, how far outside of smaller community are we willing to travel for certain things, for the amenities, so to speak, or the comfort level? About 45 minutes, okay? That's about as far as they want to go. Anything inside an hour is helpful. That's lodging, that's all of that. Because the actors, for instance, they have a nice little clause in their contract that they are door to door. When the driver picks them up in the morning and starts to bring them to the set, the meter is running until they get to the set, and then the meter stops when they get back at night. So they get paid an hour and a half travel time if it's 45 minutes. Anything over that, they get paid more. You know, so they try to keep it. It's a time thing as well, because the actors, if they have an early call, they have to be there early because they got to get. Say if we don't have a crew call at 7 o'clock, that means the actors have to be there. If they're going into makeup and stuff, they got to be there around 6, 5:30, and then the crew that's going to support them has to be there 5:30, something like that. And so it backs up as you go through the process, so it affects the entire day, depending on how far everybody has to travel back and forth from wherever they're staying to the set. So we try to keep it under an hour. If we get an hour starts, even after 45 minutes, they start getting a little antsy about that. So, but yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, this is something we always bring up, and I feel like I don't even need to say it, but with this discussion is, every one of you represents a particular county, and we didn't want this program to work so that you kind of put walls up around your county and just try to keep everything there, because it may be you have the shooting location, but the lodging is in your neighboring county, or vice versa. So we hope that everybody will work together, and even if you don't have everything that they need, you can say, hey, we're going to get a piece of the action, but the other part that you need may be in my neighbor's county, and why don't you check with them?
And a good example of that was last year on Timothy Green. We were shooting in Newton County, and a lot of the crew was staying over in Madison. Okay, and then in some cases, even all the way up, when I was shooting up in Madison a few years ago, they were staying out at Lake Oconee. So, out at the what's that big 4-star place out there?
That was Ritz-Carlton.
Ritz-Carlton, yeah, they were hanging. How could I forget that? Other than the fact that I wasn't staying there. So, but anyway. So.
I think we got one more. One more.
We'll get this guy.
What is the best way a community can market businesses and things that they have available to these production companies when they come in and make?
Well, again, go ahead and compile you a list. I'm sorry, how can you market your community is the best way. Go ahead and start putting together your assets. Okay, what do we have that we can offer from a logistical standpoint? Okay, what is it we can offer? Where are the hotels? What kind of private homes can we access if an actor wants to stay somebody wants to stay in a nice house, and do you have somebody that's willing to let them have access to it?
I guess I'm thinking more in terms of businesses that are in that production.
Okay, you're talking more along the business lines. Well, again, where say for instance your hardware stores. Every community's probably got somebody that does some sort of porta-john service. Think of the services. Think of us as a construction company in a way. We're coming into an area and we're going to be needing everything a builder would need, a construction company is going to need, and just start putting together a list of restaurants, fast food included, anything like that. Just that's what you got. Your clothing stores, auto repair places. I mean, while we're in Sonoya, we have to have our cars, oils changed in our cars, all that stuff. We've got a contract with a guy in Sonoya there that does all our oil changes and stuff. So it's all of that kind of thing that you just, it's really a chamber of commerce almost kind of concept. Okay, right? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out there that if you're brainstorming about this, the state has. There's a source book that we send out to every production company. I think there's some copies on the other side of that wall over there. We don't publish it. A company called Oz does it, but it's if you wanted to kind of look at the typical businesses that a film or TV show works with, that's a good resource guide, and you may want to have a list. You don't have to create a book, but I mean, I gave a speech at the Macon Film Festival 2 weeks ago, and a lady came up afterwards and handed me a copy of the Middle Georgia Production Directory, which I'd never heard of until then. And it was a spiral-bound book of basically the same folks that are in that book, but on a local level. And she'd done some research and see who could provide services like that locally in Middle Georgia. So I'm not saying you have to go that far, but if you just want to brainstorm about the vendors and things like that, you may want to take a look at the book or go to the website, our website, and we have a link to the source book, and you can kind of flip through it as if you were reading the physical book.
Well, I think that's going to wrap us up today. We've got another session in here, right here with Mr. Steve Morse, but we want to say thank you
Oh, okay.
to Mr.
Thank you.
Riley. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
Thank you,
being
ma'am.
here on behalf of Winter Chautauqua.
Thank you all for having me up here. Appreciate it.